Your daughter inherits nothing, the family lawyer announced. Adaeze Bello-Song stared at the will projected across the glass wall. Her newborn daughter had arrived 12 days after Chairman Song Min-jae died, and according to the document in front of 19 shareholders, those 12 days were enough to erase the child from the family trust. But Adaeze was not looking at the inheritance. She was looking at the page number. Page 19 of 19. Adaeze had designed the chairman's private archive herself. There had been 20 pages. Across the long table, Han Somael adjusted his silver-rimmed glasses and continued reading as though he had not just removed a child from her own future. The former Dongjin Railway Hotel and its adjoining property shall remain within Song Group's commercial portfolio, he said. The board may sell, demolish, restructure, or redevelop the property according to the company's financial interests. Rain struck the unfinished glass roof above them. Each drop sounded sharper than the one before it. The emergency meeting had been moved to the railway hotel because the late chairman's will concerned the property itself. The top floor was still under construction. Temporary lights hung between original timber beams. Protective sheets covered sections of the floor, and architectural models lined one wall beneath clear plastic. Adaeze had spent 3 years restoring the building. Now one sentence could destroy it. Several shareholders lowered their eyes to the papers in front of them. Others began writing figures in the margins. They were already calculating what the land might bring if the company abandoned the restoration project and sold to a luxury developer. Adaeze looked at her husband. Song Duyun sat across from Somael, his jaw tight, his hands clasped on the table. He had not spoken since the reading began. His father had promised something different. Chairman Song had told Adaeze that the railway hotel would be placed inside a cultural trust. He had asked her to remain its architectural guardian after his death. He had spoken of classrooms, public archives, exhibition rooms, and a preservation school for young architects. He had never spoken of demolition. There is one further provision, Somael said. His voice remained calm. Any future interest created by the estate shall pass only to descendants formally entered into the Song family registry before the chairman's death. One of the shareholders cleared his throat. Director Han, does that exclude Director Song's newborn daughter? Somael paused as though the answer caused him personal pain. According to the document, yes. Adaeze's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. No one had questioned whether Adun was Duyun's daughter. No one had demanded a test. No one had whispered about blood. This was colder than that. A sentence had been written. A date had been inserted. A page had disappeared. And a child had been erased without anyone having to raise their voice. Duyun leaned forward. My father knew Adaeze was pregnant. Somael looked at him. I am aware. He discussed the trust with both of us. Your father discussed many possible plans before his death. This was not a possibility. Somael folded his hands. I am not here to interpret private conversations. I am here to read the executed document. Adaeze looked again at the projected page. The document number at the bottom read: Archive Series 4B. Page 19 of 19. She remembered the cabinet clearly. 20 preservation sleeves. 20 numbered pages. The chairman had insisted on the final sleeve himself. May I see the original? She asked. The shareholders turned toward her. Somael's expression barely changed. The document is visible on the screen. I asked for the paper. For the first time, something guarded entered his face. He removed the document from the leather folder and passed it down the table. When it reached Adaeze, she did not read the words. She touched the lower corner. The paper was heavier than the stock Chairman Song had selected. She held it toward the temporary work lights above them. The watermark was correct. The seal was not. The embossed mark belonged to a replacement press installed after the chairman died. Adaeze looked at Somael. When was this page resealed? A few shareholders shifted in their seats. Somael remained composed. The archive staff performed routine preservation. The chairman signed this will before that seal existed. That does not invalidate the document. It means this page entered the archive after his death. Duyun rose from his chair. This meeting is suspended. Somael turned toward him. You do not have unilateral authority to suspend a shareholders' meeting. Then I request an immediate vote. The financial director frowned. On what basis? Duyun looked at Adaeze. She could not tell whether he believed the entire will had been altered, but he understood that something was wrong. On the basis that the architect who designed the archive has identified an irregularity in the chairman's final testament. Somael's expression hardened. An architect is not a document examiner. No, Adaeze said. But an architect knows when a structure has been changed. The board voted to reconvene the following morning. Adaeze had less than 24 hours to prove that page 20 had existed. If she failed, the company could cancel the restoration, sell the railway property, terminate her contract, and leave her daughter permanently outside the trust chairman Song had promised to create. As the shareholders gathered their papers, Somael approached her. He waited until Duyun was speaking to the board secretary. You should withdraw your accusation before tomorrow morning, he said quietly. Adaeze rolled her architectural plans beneath one arm. I asked a question. You accused the legal office of tampering with a will. I said the page was resealed after the chairman died. In this company, the difference between a question and an accusation depends on who hears it. She met his eyes. Is that a warning? It is advice. He stepped closer. The board has already prepared an emergency resolution. If you continue this, your architectural contract will be terminated before the will is read again. Adaeze glanced toward the railway hall beyond the glass wall. The old brick still carried fire marks from 1952. Original timber beams crossed the ceiling above temporary steel supports. The building had survived war, abandonment, water damage, and 3 development companies that wanted to demolish it. Now it might be destroyed by one missing page. Somael followed her gaze. My brother collected praise while I spent 35 years cleaning up the cost of his principles, he said. Do not make the mistake of believing his admiration made this building yours. Adaeze looked back at him. It does not belong to me. Good. It does not belong to you either. His mouth tightened. She walked away. Duyun caught up with her near the freight elevator. Are you certain there were 20 pages? Adaeze stopped. Construction workers pushed crates through the corridor behind them. Certain about the page count? Yes. I designed the cabinet. That was 3 years ago. The moment the words left his mouth, he knew what he had done. Adaeze stared at him. I am not saying you are wrong, he added. You are asking me whether I remember my own work. I am trying to understand what we can prove. You could begin by believing me. I do believe you. No. You believe I may be right. Adaeze. Those are not the same thing. He lowered his voice. My uncle has controlled the legal office for decades. Accusing him without proof could split the board and destroy the company. And allowing him to continue could destroy the building. I know. Do you? He looked exhausted. Since his father's death, Duyun had buried the chairman, stabilized the company, negotiated with shareholders, and become a father again 12 days later. Adaeze knew that grief had been following him from room to room. But grief did not make hesitation harmless. I need access to the archive, she said. I will arrange it. Not through Somael. I said I will arrange it. Adaeze nodded once. Duyun reached for her hand. She stepped back. Go home to the children. We should do this together. You are still deciding what you believe. His face tightened. That is unfair. So is asking me to wait until your confidence catches up with the damage. She entered the elevator alone. 3 years earlier, Adaeze had first entered the abandoned railway hotel wearing a hard hat that was too large and boots covered in red mud. Chairman Song arrived during the inspection and found her examining a fire-darkened timber beam. Can it be saved? He asked. Yes. The project director laughed. Replacing it is faster. Replacing every inconvenient part is how you create a new building pretending to be an old one. Adaeze replied. The chairman hired her firm the following morning. He questioned every expense, challenged every delay, and slowly learned that she would tell him the truth even when agreement would have been easier. During the archive installation, he personally counted the sleeves assigned to Series 4B. 20. Later, beneath the broken railway clock, he asked whether she would protect the building after his death. From what? She asked. From anyone who believes controlling the records means controlling the truth. At the time, she thought he was speaking about development contracts. Now someone wanted her to doubt the room she had designed and the promise she had heard with her own ears. The chairman's private archive occupied the former records level beneath the old station master's office. Adaeze had restored it 2 years earlier. Rather than covering the stone walls, she had protected them behind clear panels. The original ventilation channels remained beneath the floor, while a modern climate system controlled temperature and humidity from above. The company archivist, Ms. Choi, waited beside the security gate. She wore white gloves and the expression of a woman who considered careless handling of paper a personal insult. Director Song authorized your access, she said. He ordered independent recording of everything you do inside. Good. Ms. Choi entered the access code. The lock released. Series 4B occupied the third cabinet on the eastern wall. Ms. Choi opened it. 19 preservation sleeves sat inside. Adaeze counted them. 1 through 19. No empty sleeve. No space where a 20th page had been removed. Someone had not simply taken one page. Someone had renumbered the entire series. The archive index should show the original page count, Adaeze said. Ms. Choi went to the terminal. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Then she stopped. The index is missing. Adaeze turned. What do you mean? The legal office withdrew it 2 days after Chairman Song's death. Was it returned? The system says yes. Where is it? Ms. Choi checked the assigned drawer. It was empty. Adaeze walked around the room. Most people saw cabinets and stone walls. She saw lines, measurements, pressure points, places where one surface failed to align with another. Near the western wall, one brass ventilation grille sat slightly crooked. 1/2 centimeter. No one else would have noticed. Adaeze crouched. The screw heads were scratched. Has maintenance worked here recently? Ms. Choi shook her head. Not since the final inspection. Adaeze opened a cabinet drawer and removed a small tool. The screws came loose too easily. Behind the grille, the old ventilation channel disappeared beneath the floor. Dust covered the lower surface, except for one clean strip along the edge. Something had passed through. Where does this channel lead? Ms. Choi asked. Adaeze traced the line in her memory. To a drying compartment behind the western wall. I thought it was sealed. It was. She removed the remaining screws and opened the concealed panel. A shallow steel compartment appeared behind it. Empty. Someone had used it. Someone had returned for whatever they placed inside. Before Adaeze could speak, footsteps approached the archive entrance. Duyun appeared with Kian. The 9-year-old held his school backpack against his chest. His uniform tie had been loosened, and rain darkened the shoulders of his jacket. Adaeze stepped into the corridor. Why is he here? The child care center lost power, Duyun said. Mayan has the baby, but Kian asked to come with me. I asked many times, Kian corrected. Duyun gave him a tired look. Adaeze crouched in front of the boy. You should be at home. I wanted to see the archive. Not tonight. His eyes moved past her. He saw the open vent. His face changed. Adaeze noticed immediately. What is it? Kian looked at Duyun, then back at her. I saw Uncle Somael there. Duyun stepped closer. When? The day Grandpa's memorial flowers came. That had been 7 weeks earlier. What was he doing? Adaeze asked. Kneeling beside the wall. Did he have anything with him? Kian held his hands apart. A red document case. Thin, like the cases you use for drawings. Did he see you? Yes. What did he say? Kian looked toward the vent. He said he dropped something. Then he added, he told me old buildings swallow things. Adaeze stood. Kian had seen Sonael near the hidden compartment. The problem was proving what he had placed inside it. Building security reviewed every camera covering the archive corridor. No footage showed Sonael entering. The electronic log contained no record under his name. Ms. Choi checked staff access, temporary passes, and maintenance codes. Nothing. He could not have entered without appearing somewhere. Dian said. Adaeze looked at the old stone wall. Unless he did not use the door. Before midnight, Sonael arrived with 2 outside lawyers. He listened as the head of security summarized the search. Then he looked at Kian. You should not involve a child in a legal dispute. Dian moved between them. No one involved him. He claims he saw me inside a restricted archive without any access record. I did see you, Kian said. Sonael sighed. Kian, memory is not a photograph. The boy tightened his grip on his backpack. Sonael continued. You were very young when your mother died. Grief can affect what a child remembers. The air in the corridor changed. Dian stepped forward. What does his mother have to do with this? I am explaining why no responsible board should rely on a child's uncertain recollection. Kian lowered his eyes. Adaeze saw the shame spreading across his face. She placed one hand on his shoulder and turned him gently away from Sonael. That is enough. Sonael looked toward the lawyers. This is precisely why serious accusations cannot be built around a confused child. Adaze's anger became cold. You are right about one thing. He looked at her. Kian will not be used to prove what an adult did. She moved between them. I will prove it without him. Sonael gave a small nod. Then we will see what remains when your confidence meets evidence. He walked away. Kian waited until the elevator doors closed. I am not confused, he whispered. Adaeze crouched beside him. I know. He was there. I believe you. Dian placed one hand on his son's shoulder. So do I. Kian looked between them. Then why did he say that about Mom? Dian's face tightened. Because he wanted you to doubt yourself. Kian wiped at his eyes quickly. It worked for 1 second. Adaeze held out her hand. 1 second is not the same as winning. He took it. At home, Adun was awake. Duyun's aunt had left the baby in the bassinet beside the living room window. The apartment was quiet except for traffic below and the soft hum of the bottle warmer. Adaeze had planned to return directly to the hotel, but Kian asked her to stay until he fell asleep. He sat on the kitchen counter while she prepared the baby's bottle. Do old buildings really swallow things? He asked. No. Then why did Uncle Somael say it? Because he wanted a sentence that sounded clever enough to end the conversation. Kian considered this. Adults do that. Yes. You do it when Dad asks if you are angry and you say you are tired. Adaeze looked at him. That is different. It sounds the same. Despite everything, she laughed. When Adaeze lifted Adun from the bassinet, the inheritance stopped feeling like an argument about money or company shares. It became the future someone had decided her child should not have. Kian sat beside them on the rug. Does she know someone took her page? No. Good. Babies should not have to know adults are strange. Duyun entered carrying a blanket. Kian. It is true. Adaeze looked at the boy. What else do you remember about the red case? It had a black strap. Was the station master's office open? Kian closed his eyes. I think so. There was light on the stairs. Adaeze became still. The station master's office sat directly above the archive. Duyun noticed her expression. What are you thinking? I need the original survey plans. Now? Yes. He followed her into the hallway. You cannot keep going without sleep. I can sleep after the meeting. Adaeze, the baby needs you. Kian needs you. You cannot carry this alone. Then stop standing at the edge of it. I am here. You are physically here. His expression tightened. I stopped the meeting today. You requested a pause after I found a false seal. What are you asking from me? I am asking you to stop treating my certainty like an emotional position that needs verification. I am trying to protect you from making an accusation we cannot prove. No. You are protecting the company from the consequences of believing me. That is not true. Then tell the board now that the will was altered. I cannot say that without evidence. Somail knows that. He keeps moving while you wait. Duyun lowered his voice. I have spent my adult life repairing problems created by people who acted before they had all the facts. And I have spent my career being asked to prove what I can already see. What happens to us if every disagreement becomes proof that I do not believe in you? Adaeze looked toward the living room. What happens to us if I must wait for permission to trust myself? Adun began to cry. The sound ended the argument without resolving it. Adaeze fed her, kissed Kian goodnight, and put on her coat. Will you come back before school? He asked. I will try. Duyun stood by the door. I will authorize access to any part of the hotel you need. Adaeze looked at him. That is not the same as standing beside me. I know. It was the first time he admitted it. She left without another word. Back at the hotel, Adaeze spread the original survey drawings across the temporary site office. The archive ventilation line ended below the former station master's office. She opened a plan completed before restoration began. A narrow service shaft once connected both rooms. It did not appear on the final company drawings. Adaeze searched her handwritten site notebook. Halfway through, she found a sketch made during the final construction phase. Chairman Song had privately requested a fireproof compartment behind the railway clock in the station master's office. The compartment shared the old service shaft. Adaeze remembered that afternoon. The chairman had dismissed the contractors and remained in the room with her. I want a place no lawyer can open with a key, he said. That sounds like something a lawyer should know about. It sounds like something a lawyer should never know about. She thought he was joking. What are you hiding? A copy of the truth. From whom? He looked toward the doorway. From anyone who thinks managing a family means owning it. Adaeze had not asked more questions. Now the memory returned with frightening clarity. She stood so quickly that her chair struck the wall. She called building security. I need access to the station master's office. The upper floor is sealed, the guard said. Call Director Song. 5 minutes later he returned. Access has been approved. By whom? Duyun Song. Adaeze said nothing. The station master's office remained unfinished. Protective sheets covered the floor. The railway clock had been removed from the wall for restoration, leaving a circular opening surrounded by old brick. Adaeze found the hidden release point behind a timber panel. The fireproof compartment opened. Empty. Her hope collapsed. Then she saw scratches inside the lower corner. The back panel could move. She pressed upward. A narrow inner plate shifted, exposing the old service shaft. Fresh dust had been disturbed along one edge. Someone had opened it recently. The missing page was gone. But a thin black notebook remained wedged beneath the plate. Adaeze pulled it free. Chairman Song's handwriting covered the first page. Private Archive Index. Every document series was listed by number, date, page count, and duplicate filing location. Adaeze turned quickly to Series 4B. Last Will and Testament. 20 pages. Page 20 had its own description. Cultural Trust, maternal naming right and future beneficiary provision. Below it was an authentication number. And the name of an independent cultural foundation. Chairman Song had filed a duplicate outside the company. He had expected someone inside the family to interfere. Adaeze called the foundation. A recorded message said the office opened at 8. She called again. The same message played. She searched her phone and found the number of the foundation's director, a woman she had met once during a preservation conference. The woman answered on the 6th ring. This is Dr. Lee. My name is Adaeze Bello-Song. I worked with Chairman Song on the Dongjin Railway restoration. There was a pause. I know who you are. I need to verify an authentication number. Now? Yes. Adaeze read it aloud. The silence on the line changed. Where did you find that? In the chairman's private index. Dr. Lee lowered her voice. Do not send me a photograph. Do not email anyone at Song Group. Why? Because Chairman Song instructed us to release the duplicate only if the archive copy was challenged. Adaeze sat down slowly. So it exists? Yes. 20 pages? Another pause. Yes. Adaeze closed her eyes. Can you bring it to the shareholders' meeting at 9? I can. Please come with an independent notary. I already know which one. The call ended. Adaeze looked at the notebook in her hands. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to breathe. Someone had removed page 20. But Chairman Song had expected the attempt. He had hidden proof outside the family. What Adaeze did not know was whether Somael had already convinced enough shareholders to dismiss her before the duplicate could be read. At 6 a.m, Duyun sat alone in his father's office. The chairman's glasses remained beside a stack of newspapers. His coat still hung behind the door, making the room feel as though he had stepped out rather than died. The board secretary entered. The termination resolution has 14 supporting votes. Before the meeting? Director Han contacted them overnight. What happens if I block it? You can delay it once. After that, he will challenge your temporary succession authority. Duyun looked at his father's empty chair. His entire career had been built on waiting until he had enough facts. Inside the company, caution had made him useful. With Adaeze, it had made him absent at the exact moment presence mattered. What if I transfer my voting authority to the Independent Estate Review Committee? The secretary stared at him. You would lose control of the succession process. Would the committee freeze major contract decisions? Yes, including Adaeze's termination. What would Somael call it? Reckless. Duyun looked toward the old coat. What would you call it? The secretary hesitated. Late. Prepare the transfer. At 9 the following morning, the shareholders returned to the temporary boardroom. Somael sat at the head of the table. The board's secretary placed a resolution in front of him. A vote has been requested to terminate Adaeze Bello-Song's architectural contract, she announced. Somael looked toward Adaeze. You were warned. Duyun stood before Adaeze could answer. There will be no vote. Somael's eyebrows lifted. You do not have authority to block it. At 5:20 this morning, I transferred my temporary voting authority into the Independent Estate Review Committee. The shareholders began whispering. Somael stared at him. You surrendered control during a succession dispute? The committee's rules prohibit major contract changes until the will has been independently verified. You have placed the company in paralysis. I prevented you from using the company to punish the person questioning you. Somael's voice sharpened. You do not know what she found. No, Duyun said. He looked at Adaeze. That is the point. The room became quiet. I should not need to know she will win before I stop you from destroying her for asking the question. Adaeze felt something painful loosen inside her. Duyun had blocked the vote before seeing the chairman's index. Before knowing about the duplicate. Before knowing whether Adaeze could prove anything. He had finally chosen the uncertain ground beside her. Somael leaned back. You have put a foreign architect ahead of your responsibility to your father's company. Duyun's expression hardened. She saved this property before she became my wife. You will address her by her position, or you will not address her at all. Adaeze stepped forward. Chairman Song's private archive index confirms that Series 4B contained 20 pages. She placed copies on the table. Somael glanced at the document. A private notebook is not a will. I agree. Something cautious entered his eyes. Adaeze continued. That is why the chairman included the registration number of a duplicate filed with the Dongjin Cultural Foundation. The boardroom doors opened. Ms. Choi entered with Dr. Lee, 2 foundation representatives, and an independent notary. The notary carried a sealed document case. Somail's face changed. Only slightly. But Adaeze saw it. The notary placed the case on the table. The Foundation received this copy 9 months before Chairman Song's death, he said. It has remained in independent secured storage. He displayed the authentication number. It matched the chairman's private index. Then he opened the case. The duplicate contained 20 pages. No one spoke. The notary began to read page 20 aloud. The Dongjin Railway Hotel and its adjoining property would be transferred into a cultural trust. The building could not be demolished, sold, or converted into ordinary commercial use for 25 years. Adaeze Bello-Song was appointed architectural guardian. Any child born to Adaeze and Duyun within 1 year of the chairman's death would receive a future voting interest in the trust. Somail's fingers tightened around his pen. The notary continued. The naming and registration of such a child shall remain the sole right of the child's parents, with primary protection afforded to the mother's chosen cultural and personal designation. No company officer, trustee, extended relative, or family registry shall alter, suppress, or replace that name for commercial, hereditary, or reputational purposes. The notary lowered the page. Adaeze thought of Adun sleeping at home. Chairman Song had not protected her from questions about blood. He had protected her from a system. He understood that an institution could erase a person without insulting them. All it needed was a form, a deadline, and someone trusted enough to say the procedure was correct. The financial director removed his glasses. Why would the archive copy contain only 19 pages? Somail answered before anyone else. An administrative error. Ms. Choi stood. The legal office withdrew the archive index 2 days after Chairman Song's death. For verification. It was never returned to its assigned drawer. I cannot be responsible for every filing mistake. Duyun looked at him. Did you remove page 20? No. The answer came too quickly. Ms. Choi placed a seal record on the table. The false final page carries the replacement archive seal. A preservation error. The legal office signed out that seal. For routine maintenance. Your assistant was the only person recorded as receiving it. Everyone turned toward the boardroom entrance. Somail's assistant, Minasio, stood beside the door. Her face was pale. Somail's voice softened. Minasio, be careful. Tears filled her eyes. You told me it was a correction. His expression froze. You said the final page had been damaged. Stop. You gave me 19 pages and told me to reseal them. I said stop talking. Minasio looked at the notary. He told me the chairman's private index was outdated. He ordered me to renumber the sleeves. One of the shareholders stood. Did you know a page had been removed? No. I believed the new final page replaced a damaged original. Somail pushed back his chair. This meeting is over. No, Adaeze said. He looked at her. This is the first part of the meeting you do not control. In front of him. Duyun stared at his uncle. You altered the will because you wanted the property. I protected it. You prepared to sell it. I prepared to make it useful. Adaeze stepped closer. It was already useful. As classrooms? Exhibition rooms? A monument to rust? As a place the city did not need to lose. Somail laughed bitterly. You know nothing about sacrifice. I protected this company for 35 years. I negotiated contracts my brother took credit for. I silenced scandals. I kept creditors away. He collected praise while I cleaned up the cost of his principles. The shareholders avoided his eyes. Somail continued. Then, near the end of his life, he placed one of the company's last valuable properties into the hands of an architect he had known for 3 years. Adaeze held his gaze. I was not trusted with this building because I married into your family. You were trusted because my brother enjoyed defying expectations. I was trusted because I was the only person in the room who refused to destroy it. His jaw tightened. You think that makes you better than me? No. Then what does it make you? The person who remembered that protecting something is not the same as owning it. Somael turned toward Duyun. You think she understands this family better than I do? This is not about who understands the family. It is always about the family. No, Duyun said. That is the excuse you use whenever you want control without accountability. Somael stared at him. I taught you how this company works. You taught me how fear can be made to look like discipline. I kept your father's empire alive. And then you decided that made his final words yours. Somael's anger sharpened. You were never ready to lead. Maybe not. The answer surprised everyone. Duyun continued. But leadership cannot mean protecting the company from the truth. Somael looked around the table as though searching for someone who would still agree with him. No one met his eyes. Security officers entered. He turned toward Duyun again. You are allowing them to remove your father's brother. Duyun's face held grief, but no hesitation. You removed yourself when you decided his final words belonged to you. Somael was escorted from the boardroom. He did not look back. The shareholders recognized the authentic will. Adaeze's contract remained in place. The railway hotel passed into the cultural trust. The legal office was placed under investigation. Adaeze's future interest was restored. But the room did not feel victorious. It felt exhausted. Documents could be corrected in minutes. People took longer. After the board members left, Adaeze remained alone in the temporary boardroom. The rain had stopped. Morning light entered through the unfinished glass roof and fell across the architectural model. For months she had imagined the opening of the railway hotel. She had pictured children running through the main hall, students sketching the old beams, and former railway workers telling stories beside the restored ticket windows. She had never imagined that the building's survival would depend on a missing page. Duyun entered quietly. Adaeze. She did not turn. I am sorry. For which part? For asking whether you remembered correctly. She waited. For thinking caution made my hesitation harmless. Still, she said nothing. Duyun looked down. I kept calling my silence caution because it sounded better than fear. Adaeze's expression softened, but she did not rescue him from the truth. I was afraid of accusing my uncle, he continued. I was afraid of splitting the board. I was afraid of becoming responsible for another collapse after my father died. And I became the easier risk. Yes. The honesty hurt. It also mattered. I blocked the contract vote because I finally understood that waiting for proof had already become a decision, he said. Adaeze looked toward the railway tracks below. When I was 24, I worked on a restoration project in Accra. There was a wall everyone said was failing. The developer wanted it demolished. Duyun listened. I told them the wall was not the problem. The foundation had been cut during electrical work. They said I was too young to sound so certain. They brought in 2 senior engineers. For 6 days, everyone discussed whether I was being difficult. What happened? The wall collapsed. Duyun closed his eyes. No one was hurt, Adaeze said. But afterward, the same people who questioned me asked why I had not insisted more strongly. He looked at her. I promised myself I would never make myself smaller just to make doubt more comfortable for other people. I asked you to do exactly that. Yes. I cannot undo it. No. What can I do? Do not ask me to forgive you because you made one correct decision. I will not. Do not use today as proof that everything is fixed. I will not. Adaeze studied him. Trust is also a structure. A faint smile touched his mouth. You would explain marriage using architecture. You married an architect. I did. One repaired beam does not restore an entire building. No. But it can stop the roof from falling while the rest of the work begins. Duyun looked at her. Is that what this is? Adaeze stepped forward and took his hand. It is permission to begin the work. They went home together. Kian opened the apartment door before they reached it. Did you find the page? We found a copy, Adaeze said. Was Uncle Somael lying? Duyun answered. Yes. Kian looked relieved, then sad. What happens to him? There will be an investigation. Will he go to prison? We do not know yet. Kian looked at Adaeze. Did I help? You helped us know where to look. But I did not prove it. You were never supposed to. He frowned. Then why did Grandpa tell me old buildings remember things? He did not, Dian said. Adaeze smiled. But he would have agreed. Kian went to the bassinet. Adoon slept with both hands near her face. Does she get her page back? Adaeze stood beside him. Yes. Can she read it? Not for a long time. Then we should keep it somewhere safe. We will. Not in the archive. Adaeze laughed. Definitely not in the archive. He listened before asking questions. They still argued. Trust did not return through one emotional conversation. It returned in smaller moments. Dian stopped using the phrase, "Are you sure?" when he meant, "I am afraid." Adaeze stopped walking away before telling him what had hurt. Kian learned that adults could disagree without the house becoming unsafe. 6 weeks later, the restored east wing of the Dongjin Railway Hotel opened to the public. It was no longer a hotel. The railway hall had become a cultural archive and design school. Former offices were now classrooms. The dining room held an exhibition about migration, labor, and the families who had passed through the station carrying everything they owned. Adaeze refused to make the building look new. Old fire marks remained visible on the brick. Scratches beneath the windows were protected rather than covered. Original timber stood beside clean glass. Damage had been repaired, not erased. A brass plaque near the entrance read, Dongjin Cultural Trust. Architectural Guardian, Adaeze Bello-Song. Adaeze's mother watched the opening through a video call from Nigeria. Move closer to the plaque, she ordered. I cannot read it. Mama, everyone else can read it. I am not everyone else. Kian laughed while Duyun held Adoon against his chest. The baby wore a soft yellow sweater and slept through nearly every photograph. Visitors filled the restored rooms. Former railway workers touched the old ticket windows and told younger relatives where they had once stood. Architecture students gathered around Adaeze's sketches. Children pressed their hands against the clear panels protecting the original brick. The chairman had wanted the building to remain useful, not only profitable. Useful to memory. Useful to people who had never owned shares. Useful to a city that had already lost too many places because someone with authority called demolition progress. When the last tour began, Adaeze, Duyun, and Kian went upstairs to the station master's office. The railway clock had been returned to the wall. It ran 3 minutes slow, just as it had decades earlier during heavy rain. A leather registration book waited inside the clock compartment. Adaeze placed Adoon in a small cot near the window. Duyun opened the register and handed her the pen. We chose the name together, Adaeze said. Yes. Then we write it together. Duyun placed his hand beneath hers. They wrote slowly. Adaeze Song. Kian leaned over the desk. What does it mean again? Ada connects her to the women who came before me, Adaeze said. My mother, my grandmother, and the women before them. Anun? Grace. So her name belongs to both places? Adaeze smiled. No. Her name belongs to her. Kian nodded, then removed a new sketchbook from his backpack. On the first page, he carefully wrote Adoon's name. What is that for? Duyun asked. I am going to draw every building we show her. He placed the sketchbook beside the cot. On the cover he had written, Buildings we will show you. Adaeze watched Kian begin with the railway clock. He had not saved the family by confronting a room full of adults. He had done something smaller and more truthful. He had noticed. He had remembered. He had spoken when someone powerful expected him to doubt himself. That was enough. Later, after the final visitors left, Adaeze walked through the railway hall carrying her daughter. Duyun followed with a box of exhibition materials, while Kian ran ahead beneath the old clocks. The hall held traces of every life it had survived. Scratched bricks. Repaired beams. New glass beside old timber. names carved beneath a windowsill by workers long dead. None of the marks had been hidden. They had been made safe and allowed to remain part of the structure. Adaeze looked down at Adaeze. The missing page mattered because one powerful man believed removing it could remove the future written upon it. Somael had controlled the archive, the seal, and the legal office. He had never controlled the truth. The building remembered the disturbed dust. Kian remembered the red document case. The clock protected the index. Duyun stopped waiting for certainty before choosing where to stand. And Adaeze refused to accept a false version simply because powerful people called it official. Restoration did not mean pretending damage had never happened. It meant refusing to let the damage become the final version of the structure. Adaeze stopped beneath the railway clock. Duyun stood beside her. Kian waited near the entrance. "Are we going home?" he called. "In a minute," Duyun answered. Adaeze looked at the clock. 3 minutes slow. Still moving. "No one gave her permission to enter this family's future," Adaeze said quietly. Duyun looked at Adaeze. "No." Adaeze smiled. "Her name was already written there. If your most trusted relative secretly removed your child from a will, would you expose them publicly or give them one chance to confess? Tell us what you would do, and explain why. Because a missing page can be restored. Trust is much harder to rebuild.